I guess I should start when I met the Allman Brothers. It was sort of like around 1967. My friend, I was in a band with a friend, guitar player Joey Marshall, and Gaslight Square was a place in St. Louis, kind of like Bourbon Street, New Orleans. We were auditioning in one of the clubs, and Joey said, "Man, the Allmans are coming to town, the Allman Joys." And I said, "Who's that?" And he said, "It's these guys from Florida, and they're really good." So they came to town, I met them and formed a friendship with them. And then when they went in LA and became the Hourglass, I actually went out and traveled out there with them and sang backup on 2 songs on the second album, Down in Texas and Home for the Summer. I stood there with Greg and sang backup harmony. You won't see any credits or anything, but I was just happy to do it, and it was a great time. And so my bands in like 69, they were just kind of, I was kind of floating around, and they would rather go to concerts than play the jobs. And I had friends, Joan and Donna Roosman, that were down here with, well, I went to Muscle shows with Dwayne, and he called Greg from Eddie Hinton's house and told him to come down, and he's going to put a band together. So I called down to Donna, and she said, "Jan, you need to come down here. This band they put together is just tremendous." And
Speak up.
And I said, "Okay, I'm thinking about it." And she handed the phone over to Greg, and Greg said, "Man, come on down," which they always said that. I don't know, it might be a Southern thing or something, but Dwayne and Greg were such good friends. Every time you talk to them, they go, "Yeah, come on down, come on down." And I said, "Well, I just might do that." I had a friend driving to Florida, and I said, "Would you give me a lift to Macon, Georgia on your way through?" And he said, "Sure." So we got in his little sports car, we drove down, and right in front of this street, he dropped me off with a big duffel bag of clothes and a Gibson Dove guitar, and I walked in the house that was here. And that's what I want to explain to you, what I walked into. What I walked into was a front porch and a long hallway. So imagine walking through a door, a long hallway with doors on each side of the hallway. Well, on the left side of the hallway was a couple doors. The second door down was a big room, and I walked in, and there was mattresses laying all around the floor, and then there was a console stereo that later they said belonged to Otis Redding, and a Coke machine. That's all that was in the room. And they were all sleeping, and they were waking up going, "Oh yeah, I got a da-da-da-da-da." And in the Coke machine, you could get a long neck beer for 25 cents, you know. And I thought, what a setup this is, you know. Well, Twiggs had figured out that if he stocked the Coke machine with beer for 25 cents a beer, he could restock the Coke machine, so it was a perpetual beer machine that took care of itself. The only problem is, when he stocked it, Greg was leading the charge and would go, "Man, come on, man, give me a beer, you know, come on." And we'd be right by him, probably Callahan or Kim or one of us would be begging beers from him. So he tried to stock the Coke machine when we weren't around, you know. So then, let's see, where am I at? Oh, he invited me, okay, the Coke machine. So then, the day would be, they would be playing on the porch and stuff, and then Jan Winter came to town, along with Stephen Paley, and Boz Scaggs was also with him, and they were at the house, and everybody was playing. Well, they would go down by the studio. On the side of the studio, there was an empty room, and that's where they rehearsed a lot. I mean, I've heard Greg tell the story that there was a room here that they rehearsed, but as far as I know, that didn't happen. They didn't rehearse here; they rehearsed down there. And then they played at the discotheque, what they call down there, the sign. I was at that too, and it was on the second floor. So they went Kim and Callahan went and put flyers at all the college cars, you know. Let's go take a job tonight, you know. Well, that was the first time I actually heard the band, was when they played there. And when they kicked off, and like they started every show from there on with the same way the first album is. When you hear the first album, you're hearing almost what their whole show was, down, down, and down, down, leading into all those songs. When I heard that, I went, oh my God, because there was nothing like it. You know, there was no music like that. And so I went, wow, this is really, really good. So that happened. And then finally, we left here and went down to Daytona, and everybody got in. They had a white van with mattresses in the van, so I climbed in. It was Twigs driving, Kim and Callahan. A couple guys were in the truck with the liftgate and the van. So we were all laying around, the rest of us laying around in the van, and we went to leave at night out of Macon, Georgia, and the police pulled us over. Oh, it's 1969, the police, uh-oh. You're shining the light in the car. Oh, what do we have here? A bunch of hippies, you know. Twigs Linda goes, yes, we're Mr. Phil Walden's band. As soon as they heard that name, Phil Walden, you better believe they would have a nice trip. And we thought, all right, you know. So we left here, and then we went to Daytona Beach, to their house on 100 Van Avenue in Daytona, and they played their old high school, and they played the pier there. And so like when they played the pier, it was hot as heck that day, and we wheeled everything out on the pier. But what I want to say, to describe Dwayne Allman, when they played their high school, I stood out in the lobby, and there was this kid saying, you can't go out this door. You can't go out this door. Of course, I went, and at that time I was smoking cigarettes, and that's the reason we were going out the door. So I was going, okay, man, I won't go out the door. When out walks Dwayne Allman with his arm around some girl, and he goes, hey, man, I'm going to go out this door. When I knock twice, let me back in. The guy goes, oh, yes, sir, okay. And he wasn't like forceful. He was just, hey, man, you know, I'm going to do this. All right. It was like, you haven't seen these drones, you know. I mean, he just had that effect. When he said something, you just wanted to do it for him, you know. And so, I don't know, that's kind of we went to the H&H, you know. Greg would say, hey, man, I'm hungry. Well, let's go get something to eat. We'd go to the H&H and get fed. For years and years and years, I thought Capricorn was picking up, you know, the tab for all the food. But it wasn't. It was Mama Louise, out of the goodness of her heart, you know, was feeding all of us, and I've thanked her many times since then, because she's just a wonderful lady. And then while we were here, Boz Skaggs was talking to Dwayne, and he wanted him to go record in Muscle Shoals with him, so he took off, went to Muscle Shoals, and he came back to the house, and he said, Callahan, you got to go up and get my twin reverb. And we go, well, Dwayne, what happened? And he was on his way back from Muscle Shoals. He got pulled over. Now, Dwayne Allman didn't have a driver's license, you know, and he had some letter from the governor that said he could drive the car or something. That didn't really work either, I'm gonna tell you. So
it's not in Alabama.
Yeah, so he you know, he left his twin reverb. So Callahan had to go get some money, go pay the fine, get the twin reverb, and bring it back here. And of course, that's when he recorded "Loan Me a Dime" and all that great music, you know, up in Muscle Shoals. And so we left out of here and went to Daytona Beach, and after that, that ended up in Boston at the Boston Tea Party. And at the big house, you might notice on one of them bricks there's a name that says Don Law, you know, and that was the guy that ran the Boston Tea Party. And we got up there, and Don Law says, well, you know, nobody ever plays here that doesn't have a record on Billboard. It's just not done. But the Allman Brothers are the first band, and we're the first band ever to play the Boston Tea Party that didn't have a record on Billboard. So he said, you can come back and hear the band tonight. And so everybody's getting dressed, and Dickie and Dwayne, everybody's putting on their best tie-dye stuff or whatever, you know. We're going to hear the band that was playing that night, which was Led Zeppelin. But they didn't really know the songs, Led Zeppelin songs, and they were playing Yardbirds, which we loved, you know. Jimmy Page's train kept rolling all night long. We were like, yeah, all right, you know. So then they played up there, and we had to hang around because he had some other spots he was going to put them in if they could hang around, and that's when we went over to this vacant building and hung out and stuff in Boston. But that kind of concludes the house here. They tore it down, I guess, but I wish it was here where I could show you. There's pictures, but it's just like, it was music. They got up, and just like Dwayne Allman, that picture with him falling asleep with the guitar across his chest, that happened many times. They just, music, they would play concerts and then go out and jam in clubs and stuff. It was just all the time. The music was the most important thing, and that's the legacy they left that we all love, you know. So anybody that has any questions, you know.
Did you ever go down the street to the cemetery with them?
No, I did not. You know, I don't know. This is kind of creepy to me, but you know, I was here when Betts went down there, and the next day he said he wrote this song that he was on this grave that belonged to this woman, which was Elizabeth Reed, that he got this idea and wrote that song. And they used to go down the cemetery. I think a little peyote was involved in that, and come back and. But I didn't go to the cemetery yet.
Jan, I mean, I haven't seen any pictures. I know Mike probably has. I'm assuming when the house was here, was it in kind of in the style of these homes? I mean, was it a big grand house, or was it a little?
It was a two-story house with a small little porch. And back there, around where the thing is sticking out, was the backyard, and there was a picnic table back there. And back there, we used to. Dwayne would always go, let's have some dead bird. That's what we call barbecue and chicken. Let's do some dead bird, and we'd barbecue back there. And one night, I had his Gibson Heritage guitar, and he just put strings on it. And I was back there strumming it about all night long. I think there was some speed involved in that or something. And I was strumming it all night long. And the next day he goes, I said, man, I'm sorry, Dwayne. He says, oh, that's all right. I just got to put new strings on. That's kind of the way he was. He didn't get mad or anything. Just, all right, you know, that's fine. But it was, there was a porch, and you walked in, there was a big hallway, and there was two rooms on this side. Well, at first, the middle room was where everybody was, and then Dwayne moved to the room farthest up and had it for his own, which he had a little stereo in there. On the room there, and across on this side of the hallway, a girl lived there with her little dog, but nobody ever intermixed. I don't know what she did, went to work or whatever, but it was never, we kind of said hi, you know, but as far as I know, you know.
As far as you know, right?
As far as I know, there was not any, you know, intermixing there.
Not with you anyway, right?
Yeah, not with me. Well, wait a minute.
You sure?
I ain't telling.
You ain't telling, huh?
Did you tell about you and Dickie getting locked out?
Pardon me?
Did you tell about you and Dickie getting locked out of the room?
Oh yeah, in Boston. Okay, in Boston when we got up there. Well, I have to tell the whole story about they changed hotels. And I was up there, I didn't have any money and stuff, and I went and told the guy that worked at the tea party, everybody had gone. I turned around and everybody was gone. And I went up, I told the guy, I said, I'm going to have to stay in the dressing room here because they changed hotels and I don't know where they're at. And the guy says, I wouldn't stay here after midnight. And to tell you that the building, the Boston Tea Party was it used to be an old synagogue, and then it was a silent movie theater and different things. and I guess there was a few spirits in there. So he said I wouldn't stay here after midnight. And I walked down the stairs, and I walked down the street. It was all dark. I had no money. It was dark. I was going, what am I going to do? I'll get picked up by the police or something. And I turned around. Of course, it was like a big old church doors, you know. And I grabbed the handle, and I said, I got to get back in there. And I went, grabbed the handle, and it opened up. And this sounds like I'm making it up, but I swear to you that it happened. And I walked up the stairs, and I heard all this crazy stuff, like chains rattling, something out of an Abbott Costello movie or something, you know. I don't know if it was my mind or what, but the next morning I woke up because I thought, the spirits will get you. Oh, and I couldn't sleep, and then finally I went, okay, then take me, I'm going to sleep. And I woke up the next day, and it was sunshine, and I walked down, there was a sub shop next to it. And this girl, Marie, worked in there, and I really didn't know her, and I walked in, and she said, hi, and I said, well, I'm with the Allman Brothers, and I don't know where they're going to come rehearse, and I don't know, and she says, well, you want something to eat? And I said, well, yeah. I said, but I don't have any money. She said, I didn't ask you if you had any money. I asked you if you wanted something. I said, well, yeah, look at a big sub, you know. So she brought me one. She said, I'm Marie, and I got an apartment right down the street here. And you can go down there, and there's Heineken beer in the fridge, and there's a guitar there. And I'm thinking, how does this woman know I like Heineken beer? And so I was baffled, but I was gladly, thank you, took the key, went down to the apartment. So the guys came down the hall and down the street, and Dickie came down, and this girl's apartment had a shower out. I think it was a shared shower for all the apartments. So Dickie decided he was going to take a shower, and he went out and took a shower, and she went back to work. And so Dickie comes out of the shower, and he comes and knocks on the door, and I walked out of the door. Well, the door closed and it locked. And here's Dickie standing with the towel around. He goes, oh, great, thanks, Jan. You know, now I'm in the hall. And I said, Dickie, I'll go down and get the key from Marie. Because it was just like just down the street, you know, like, say, a half a block.
Yeah.
So he goes, all right. He's standing with the towel, and I go down, and I'm going to get the key for him, come back, you know, and he's standing there in the shower. So I go down the block, and there's these people in a circle, you know, with this funny cigarettes, and I was like, oh, hey, how you doing? Yeah. I'm standing there and I'm smoking with them, and pretty soon I go, oh, Dickie's back there with the towel around. Oh, I'm in big trouble. You know, and I went back there, and he goes, God damn it. So I let him in. So years and years later, they were in St. Louis, and on the tour bus, he had to stand up and address everyone. This is the son of a bitch that locked me out in Boston. You know? So I tell everybody, if you see Dickie, ask him if he remembers the guy that locked him out in the hallway.
Oh my gosh.
You know, it was funny, but probably not funny to Dickie. You know? I can just imagine standing out there in the hallway. But it was good times, and I mean, it was great music, and we were riding in the van. And of course, you have to remember, there was mattresses, and all of us were just laying around in these mattresses. No air conditioning. You know, the wing windows tilted back. And Dwayne's reading a Rolling Stone magazine. He goes, man, they're calling our music swamp rock. we all laughed. Swamp rock? He goes, yeah. And so, you know, I mean, I always pride myself of just traveling with them. I don't know how I survived, but Dwayne would stop and get a loaf of bread and a bunch of bologna and some mustard, and here, eat this, you know, or they go out to eat. But, you know, to witness a music and a band that they had to invent a genre for and a name of what the music was. I mean, I've heard it compared a lot to the Grateful Dead, but it was no way Grateful Dead music. I mean, the only similarity was they had two drummers, you know. I mean, that's all that they shared with that. It was completely different. But the other thing about the house here, J-Mo was listening to the Coltrane, Dwayne was listening to the Taj Mahal and other stuff. There was all these different types of music, and Butch Trucks had a book about this thick that he was studying different time signatures and stuff, because he's the one that kind of brought in the time signature stuff. And it was all a combination of all this jazz and blues and everything of course, that made what came out to be what we hear as Allman Brothers music, which is like no other music ever. Yeah, hon.
When you were with them, Jan,
Yeah.
in the early years,
Yeah.
did you, your opinion of it, did you see Dwayne and Barry and Greg and them seeing themselves as what they became, really superstars at that
No.
early point on?
No, I didn't see them. And Dwayne had been through with the Hourglass. He'd been through the star mode, the LA scenes, if you will, you know. And when we were in the hotel and they were playing the Tea Party for the first time, he got them all together before the gig and he said, "Here's how this is going to work." He said, "Just play the music. Just worry about the music." And he pointed to Twiggs Lennon and he said, "He'll take care of the money. Don't worry about the money. Just play the music." And that's what, it was all the music. They didn't, and I know they weren't thinking, oh, we're going to be this or that. It was just, we're going to do these tunes and we're going to do them right. And they rehearsed them every day over and over and over. And I think it was just that. I don't think anything else was on Dwayne's mind but the music, you know. And just like I've heard Dickie say that I don't think they really knew why it worked. I think it was the magic of, and anybody that plays music and musicians know that you can get some guys together and sometimes it just works and sometimes it doesn't. And this was a thing that the guys that got together just worked, and that's when you all heard the story that Dwayne said, "You're going to have to fight me to get out of this room if you're not going to be in my band." Because I think that's what it was, and Dickie said that before, that he didn't know what it was, that it just, you know, it just worked. So I think it was the magic of just the right people at the right time, and it was easy. I mean, they had to work things out for leads and stuff, but it was real easy because it just seemed to like fall together,
Yeah,
you know.
thank you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, did you guys make many stops in between Daytona and Boston? Because I'm from Boston, and I always found it kind of ironic that you guys were so huge early on.
Early on, they did make a few stops from Daytona. After we played the pier, there was a couple of armories on the way up to Boston, but not many. It was just a couple. I think they were armories on the way up and on the way back. We got up to Boston, and we pulled in, and I mean, this was before cell phones and GPS and all that stuff. And we kind of got lost, and we stopped, and Callahan was driving the truck, and I went up to the truck, I go, "Mike, where are we at?" And he goes, "Just follow me." And he made a couple turns, and there we were, you know. And after we left Boston, we went to stay at Twiggs' aunt's house in Upper New York, up New York State, and then came back down. And of course, Jacksonville was always a rally point because Barry was still living there at the time with Big Linda, and Larry Reinhardt lived right across the hall from him on Riverside, Jacksonville. And well, I'll tell you that story too. We were riding in the van. I was riding in the van with Greg, and we were about to run out of gas in Florida. And we were riding along, and I said, "Greg, teach me that song, Long Black Veil." And he said, "Okay." I said, give me a verse," and he'd give me a verse, and I would sit there and, "Okay, give me the second one." And so he told me, because I was in a band before, and Greg said, "You know, Jan, you need to be singing, you know, and stuff." And I said, "Okay, you're right, I do." And so we were going to stop in Jacksonville. So Larry Reinhardt was right across from Barry's apartment. And I thought to myself, okay, he knows I'm traveling with the Allmans, so he doesn't really know me. So I was sitting in his apartment, we were listening to the Doors or something, and they were playing the Coliseum, the Second Coming. And so I said, "Hey man, you know, if you need a singer, I'll sing for your band." And that's all I said. I said, "That Doors thing's really good." And I could see it working on him. He was going, "Who's this son of a guy? What does he mean? I'm not a singer." He goes, "Well, okay, if you want to sing, we're playing Friday night at the Coliseum. Come out and sit in." I go, "Okay." So I went and I said, I think I sang Rock Me Baby or something. They had 2 drummers and everything. It was like a concert setting. I think I made up the rest of the lyrics, and they hired me. They hired me after the thing. The little manager guy comes up, he goes, "You're hired. You're with the band." I go, "Okay." And then both the drummers quit. And I'm like, "Oh, this is how my career is still
There goes
going
the
to
rhythm
go."
section.
And so then we went with Larry up to New York. I don't know why he had to go to New York to get drummers, but he went up and got one drummer, and we brought him back, and he didn't work out. And we went back. We got by this time. The bass player quit by this time. So the next time we went to New York, we got these 2 guys that they said they were in some band called Apple Pie Motherhood. I never heard of it. But the bass player was a big burly guy, and we came to Jacksonville, and it was the middle of summertime, and this guy was wearing a sweater, which made kind of an odor. You could hear him walk, and then when he walked down the hall, you're like, "Oh, man." And so he wasn't working out. So I told Larry, I said, "Larry, the Allmans are coming up from Daytona and they're heading back up to New York." I said, "Let's get them, tell them they'll drive." So it worked, and I'm sorry, Allman Brothers, because this guy had some body odor. But they took him back to New York. But that was...
You sure he took them all away? He might have dropped them off somewhere.
It's so long story short, you know, that the whole thing, I was in second coming for about a minute, you know, but it didn't work out. But the funny thing about it is, the second time we went to New York, the Iron Butterfly was headlining at Fillmore East. And I went there with Larry, we were picking up another drummer. And Fillmore, Iron Butterfly was coming on, and I played concerts in St. Louis warming up the Iron Butterfly. And I really was like, "Oh, ain't I got it," you know. And so I was out getting a Coke, and Larry goes, "Man, you're Iron Butterfly." And the guy announcer came out and said that was the night the guitar player was in an accident and they couldn't go on. So the ironic thing is, years and years later, after I'd been back in St. Louis and Larry, everything, he becomes the guitar player in the Iron Butterfly, which led to Captain Beyond and everything. And I'm like, I can't make this stuff up. It's too strange, but that's, I mean, that's just kind of how everything went, man. I'm just so happy. It was great memories. Dwayne Allman, he was amazing, you know, which we all know. You know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but his personality was great. Yeah, man.
Can you talk a little bit about how, as the Allman Brothers came through St. Louis, sometimes they'd visit with you folks, and you know, you met Donna there, obviously, and you guys used to go out to movies. I'd heard things like that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the personal life of these
Donna,
guys.
He would come to St. Louis, and we were all friends. So when Dwayne was in town, he was kind of dating Donna, if you will. But I knew Donna too, and we were good friends, so the 3 of us would hang out together. And when the Jeff Beck album came out, Dwayne like, "Oh man, I want to hear that." So the guy at the radio station gave him the record. It wasn't out for sale yet. It was just a promo copy, the Truth album. And so we went to his house and Dwayne put it on, and we all 3 sat there and listened to it. And nobody said a word. He put it on, played one side, finished, turned it over, played the other side. We're listening to the whole record. So after the record was done, I said, "Well, Dwayne," I said, I didn't really hear that. I mean, it was good, but nothing really stuck out, you know." And Dwayne said, "But Jan," he says, "what he didn't play that counted." And I went, bam! You know, epic words. What he didn't play is what was the great part that he heard. You know, so then we dropped down off, and he says, "Man, I'm going down to Muscle Shows, you want to go with me?" I said, "Sure, I'll go." And he said, "Man, that's what I like about you. You'll just go." I said, "Well, you know, I'm not doing anything." So we got this old Ford, you know, and we're driving down, and we're going to go through Memphis, and he got tired, and he said, it had a big old engine in, like a 3-something, and he said, "You drive, man." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Just hold it on 80. And I told Greg this story before he passed it. He said, "That sounds like Dwayne." I go, "Well, it was Dwayne." He said, "Just hold it on 80. And I go, "Dwayne, what if I get pulled over or something? He goes, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it, which luckily didn't happen. So I'm holding on 80, you know. We get down about West Memphis, Arkansas, on the other side of Memphis, and I'm holding it on 80, and all of a sudden, man, the dashboard's lighting up, red lights, on hot, I'm going, whoa. And I go, Dwayne, wake up. I go, man, something's happening. And luckily, this is back when filling stations actually could fix cars.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
we pulled off, and the guy pulled it, put it up on a rack. I think some hoses had broke or something. And here he's fixing the car. And Dwayne got his Heritage guitar. He's leaning on the fender playing acoustic guitar. The guy's fixing the car, and people were coming in getting gas. And at this time, he had the Weight and Hey Jude was playing on the radio. So people get gas, and I'm in there going, hey man, that guy on the guitar player, he's the Hey Jude guy. They went, really? Oh, okay. Half of them didn't probably even know what I was talking about. You know. So he fixed the car. We got down to Muscle Shoals, and that's when he went to Eddie Hinton's house. And there's another thing that's just kind of eerie. The 2 songs I sang with Greg in LA on the Hourglass, down in Texas, and Home for the Summer, which I didn't get credits for, but I actually did it, and I'm happy just to have done it. Eddie Hinton wrote the 2 songs, and here I'm standing in his house with Dwayne. And so he gets on the phone, calls Greg, and says, Greg, I'm putting a band together. You need to get your ass down here, because you're going to be the singer. And he actually handed me the phone. He said, here, Jan's here. You want to say hi to him? He says, yeah. Hey, Greg. Hey, man. How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. So then he got a bus ticket, put me on the bus back to St. Louis. I went back to St. Louis. And then, of course, I told you after that's what transpired about coming down here. The bands I were in weren't doing anything. And I said, yeah, I'm going to go down there and do that, which was the best move I could ever made in my life, to travel with the Allman Brothers on their maiden voyage of, you know, the Allman Brothers Band, you know, which was absolutely amazing. And that's all going to be in my book that I'm writing called Where It All Began. And I don't mean it all began for them, it all began for me. When I got out of the car right there in front of us with a duffel bag and a guitar and walked into this house.
And when can we expect the book out?
Next year, I hope so. I hope next GABBA I'm targeting. I've got a bunch of stuff, and online I've got it on. If you Facebook me, Jan Marks, I'll lead you to where you can sign on and read a bunch of the stories. Because you know, it's just about telling the stories.
But if we sign up and join that page, then we can get the book from
there's
you
about,
next
there's
year.
about I want to say 6 chapters already written, and it's just me compiling it all together and get it editing and stuff like that. But I just want to tell the story.
Do you happen to have any pictures or photos that might be in the book that you've had with them along the way?
No, because we didn't have phones with cameras.
Right, right.
You know,
yeah.
if I did, boy, that
Yeah.
would be great. But there's no pictures that I know of.
Yeah.
You know that I have just in my head.
So we'll be looking forward to the book.
Yeah.
After Dwayne and Barry passed, did you stay in the inner circle?
I was in shock, actually. Actually, I saw Dwayne about 2 months before they happened in LA, and they were playing the whiskey. I think it was their last job before they were going off tour. And I was standing in his hotel room. I was getting ready to play the whiskey, and he was saying, man, he was going to take vitamins and he was going to get healthy. And so I think he said Honda was going to give him a bike. All he had to do was run up and down the strip with it. I don't know why he said Honda, but that's what he said, and I don't know if that happened. But he was all happy about everything. And they went off tours, all I knew. And then I heard that he had died and had the crash. But I'd heard rumors before that Dwayne Allman died that weren't true.
Really?
So initially, I was like, okay, I'm not going to believe this. And then I heard it on the radio, on the news, and I went, oh shit, you know. So I was in LA when I heard that, and then I saw Barry. I went out to L.A. and they had played the Hollywood Bowl after Dwayne passed and Barry was still alive. They played the Hollywood Bowl, and Greg was staying. I got buddies with the Capricorn L.A. people. Found out that they were staying at the Century Park Plaza Hotel, the big hotel there that they do all the political conventions. It's a huge hotel. So I went up and knocked on his door, and Barry was still alive then. I went over and visited with Barry in his room, and he was going, Jan, he goes, you know, I don't get it. He goes, we just jam and they pay us all this money. It's like he was baffled why of his success even, and, you know, and I couldn't figure it out. I go, yeah, Barry, but you guys jam really good. And he goes, yeah, I guess, but it was bothering him, and I couldn't figure out why that was. But maybe some of the, you know, Dwayne being gone, they were like this everywhere, all the time. Everywhere you looked, it was Barry and Dwayne. Everywhere, they were together. And I think he lost his friend. It was bothering him. So he had ordered some room service, and so we walked back over in Greg's room, and Greg said, hey, Barry, you know, when you're doing that thing, he goes, I'm running a little short, so I got a couple $100. Can I keep that? And Barry went, yeah, I don't care. And he turned around and walked out. And so Greg said, well, I'll tell you the story. He said when we checked in, and you have to imagine, this is, I don't know what year it was, but it's back when rock stars had torn jeans with patches on them and, you know, stuff like that, and they checked in. And Barry thought somebody said something derogatory about the Allman Brothers. And Greg said, Barry thought he said something, and he reached in his pocket and started throwing $100 bills in the air. You know, throwing $100 bills in the air, going, we got money! And Greg said, I scooped down and picked up a couple of them, and so that's what I was talking about. I ran a little short. Could I keep that? And he didn't care. But the bellhop went and picked all the money up and said, no, we didn't say anything. We hope you enjoy your stay here, son. And handed him the money, you know. So that, and then after that, that was the last time I saw Barry. But Barry was just, he was just a great guy. Very quiet most of the time, you know, but just explosive on stage. And this last thing, the 71 thing, was the best hoochie coochie man that I've heard. His singing and everything are just right out there nice, you know. I remember when I saw him at the warehouse in New Orleans on New Year's Eve, Barry goes, well, let Jan sing that song. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. No, that was his song, just like Dimples was Dwayne's song.
Right.
He sang Dimples, Barry sang Hoochie Coochie, and that was their thing, and Greg was all the rest of it, and of course Dickie, you know, was doing the rest of it.
Last night, Barry Grants played Hoochie Coochie Man, but he did a kind of like his own version.
Yeah.
Cool.
That was pretty cool.
Man, I'll tell you, when he walked out the other night, when he started doing this stuff, I could see Barry all over the place. That's just kind of was he's carrying on. There's some of them genes in him. Of course, we all know that, but he even kind of looks like Barry. Barry was a great guy.
Oh yeah.
Well, they all were great guys.
Did I miss it, or did you tell a story about the photo shoot? What Greg told you when he walked over?
When Stephen, I didn't say it. When the Stephen Paley was here with Jan Winter and Boz Skaggs, and all those shots about, you know, in the creek and stuff, and all the Stephen Paley stuff. When they went to do that, and they were in the house, and they went to walk out the door, I happened to be standing right by the front door. And Greg had gotten ready that morning, and I think he put a little too much shaving lotion on, he thought. And he got up to the door, and he goes, oh, man, he goes, man, I smell like a French whore. And everybody laughed, and they walked out the door, and they took all those pictures. And when they shot the album cover over here, I was in the house right here at the window.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
And
wow.
I was just here through all that, and the stuff down there where they're in the grotto and all that. When they took all those pictures, I was here because I would, you know, I could have gone along and been on the peripheral, but I don't know, I just didn't. You know, it's their thing.
Was that at Rose Hill where they took the picture of them in the creek?
Oh no, I
no.
don't know where that was actually in that water shot. I really
Yeah.
don't.
That was
I
that
don't
was
know
that
where-
was at Otis Redding and
Yeah.
Walden owned a piece of it. The creek ran through both properties.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Mark knows a lot more about but I do know that there's that one infamous picture of Dwayne. You know, that his Johnson's hanging out there. Then when his mother saw it, Dwayne said, "Well, aren't you proud of what you raised?" So that was Dwayne Allman. Yeah.
There was another one with them laying on the bank. I think
Was it? I never
they
seen
weren't
it.
they weren't naked. They were just all laying. Has anybody else seen that one where it's
Never seen that
next
one.
to the creek, but they're all laying?
Oh, you're thinking
I mean,
about
they're all
that.
clothed and everything.
I think you're thinking about that story that was taken early on where Twigs took it by a timer. Remember where Twigs is back in the bushes like this and they're all sitting there?
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
line?
yeah.
Yeah, that was on the road.
And Callahan's got that railroad hat on.
Yes, and that was
Yeah.
taken at what was something that was called the farm. It wasn't the Juliet farm. This was earlier than that, but someone within the circle told me it was taken at the farm. They just called it the farm. So.
Yeah, well, that picture of Callahan and the Callahan, I miss him to death. He was a great guy. That railroad hat, I can almost see him right now. He's sitting in that truck with the lift gate with a quart of beer between his legs and that railroad hat on, driving down the road, you know. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of houses across the street that have some significance, right? I couldn't put the numbers together with what was on the
There's-
big house sheet.
There's a house down here somewhere that it's where Dwayne lived, upstairs.
Oh, the orange house?
Yeah.
But there was a couple right across the street that are on the sheet from the big house, but the numbers don't
Yeah,
correspond to the
yeah.
numbers on the building.
Yeah,
The
I don't,
big house or this house?
No, there's a couple of houses right over there. That are on- Train, you get that sheet?
oh yeah?
Wait a minute,
While we're here for Canada, are still thinking Wayne Allman.
Are you really?
I get chills every time I see it. Literally, right now,
Will you say that again? I didn't hear you.
He said,
our friend here from Macon, Terry, owns the house that Wayne and
The orange one?
owns,
and
Wayne and Donna
and Joanna and I are sleeping while we're here for GABBA in Wayne's.
I was up on your porch yesterday taking pictures. I didn't know whether to knock first or just jump up on my porch.
Oh, that's fine.
And I saw the maple leaf flag. I said, that's kind of odd.
Well, these guys are.
We're here, so it's nice enough that
That's
while
cool.
we're here.
well, I know one thing that's interesting, that Dwayne Allman's record collection wasn't like people would imagine. His own personal thing that he mostly carried on the road with him was like Joni Mitchell and lighter stuff that I guess he just liked to mellow out with that.
Yeah.
But of course he liked Taj Mahal and all the blues stuff and B.B. King. Well, when I have to add this, I had a reel-to-reel tape recorder that I brought down with me when I came to the house in '69, and I had just gone to a place and taped Albert King, a whole set of him, and it came out really good, even though it was just a couple microphones in a big hall. It came out really, really good because of the dynamics of Albert King's band, you know. So I told Dwayne, I said, yeah, I got Albert King on this little Sony tape recorder. And so for about a day or 2 days, he was glued with those headphones on listening to Albert King, you know, because he loved that kind of stuff, you know. Yeah.
This Butch Tux had a good record collection too. I think Baylor said something about, you think we'd be listening to Allman Brothers stuff growing up, but he had all these other different albums, that they listened
Yeah.
to.
Well, and the Allmans had a big tie with Johnny and Edgar too, somewhere along the line. They were good buddies, and they were also good buddies with the Blues Magoos, because they'd been up to New York or something and met them. But I know I think the Winter Brothers and them used to kind of ping pong around gigs down here somewhere.
There was another band out of Boston that they were close friends with too, if you remember. Trying to remember their names
Jay
right
Giles?
now. Yeah, Jay Giles.
Giles.
They're big fans and friends.
Well,
of
you
theirs.
know, I think when we stayed in the vacant building, we could hear somebody rehearsing. And I don't know exactly who it was. It was either Jay Giles or Aerosmith or somebody. I don't know.
That's in one of the books.
I don't know who it was.
There's pictures of Jay Giles jamming with them.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the one hotel we stayed at early on, it was an older hotel, and it had an alley in the back, and the Boston Pops, you could hear the choirs and stuff rehearsing. You just open the window and hear that stuff, and that was fabulous, to hear that. Yeah, I really liked Boston. It was a nice town. And then Herb and Judy and Paul Hornsby was friends with these two people, Herb and Judy. I think Herb was a comedian, and his friend Judy, and they were together, and they did get married. They said getting married would have spoiled the whole thing. And this was in California, in LA, and I met them. And so when I was at the tea party, they were there, and they were from around there, Herb and Judy. And that's just funny that different coasts, and here they are again. But at the Boston Tea Party, Delaney and Bonnie were playing, and the Allmans were hanging around. Their equipment was in the back because Don Law wanted them to do some other dates, and they kept their equipment in the back. So Delaney and Bonnie came to town with their band that went to Europe and teamed up with Clapton and the rest of them over in Europe. Well, while they were in town, they were doing a gig, and Dwayne wheeled his amp out from the back and just started playing along, and the whole band, I could see them going, what the heck, and then they listened and they went, oh, okay, because it was just folded right into everything. Because that's the way he jammed with people. I'd seen him go out and jam with jazz people and stuff, and he would just fall into a groove or something, and if you go, he could definitely go, we all know that. But he wasn't in there to like show off or nothing. He was just wanting to add a little something to what was going on in every moment.
Yeah, this sheet says 320 College Street, First Band House, but that would have been
That's
right
here.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, I couldn't find it yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it was 309 or something.
Yeah, I gotta take a picture of that.
And right down here is somebody drew in the cement, the mushroom.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's been there for years. That's
Oh,
been
it
there
has?
for years.
It's on the sidewalk when
wonder
we
if
go.
it did
Sidewalk.
that.
I don't know if it was
mushroom
the GABBA people but I know that I've been seeing it ever since I've been coming down.
Yeah.
So
They just saw that on the internet yesterday for the first time. Maybe that was it.
I was wondering if it was still there.
So this will never be developed over here, the spot where the house was? Does GABBA own it?
No.
Oh,
No. It
You
was
Next door people own it.
Oh, they own
He
it.
tried to sell it. We tried to keep it open, but nobody could really afford it.
Well, I think it was in disrepair or something. Needed
It
some.
was. It was.
I don't know exactly what happened, but I thought maybe somebody was pressing him to fix it up, and so that's why he thought it was cheaper just to get rid of it.
Probably.
What kind of shape was it in when y'all was here? When y'all were in here?
It was
You don't remember?
old, and like I say, when you walked the front porch, and when you walked in the door, it was like just a hallway with doors off of a hallway.
Yeah.
It was a
And
shotgun
so-
house.
Shotgun house.
Yeah,
so
that's what
I
it
was just thinking
Shoot
that
through the front, come
probably
out the back.
an older time it might have been a boarding house or something
Yeah.
to where it was where they rented rooms out. I didn't know, but that's unusual that you walk into a house and you're not in a living room. It was just a hallway with doors off.
That's
That's how
you
it
are
is
in
in
New
New
Orleans.
Orleans. Shotgun.
Yeah.
Shotgun house. I
Yeah.
lived in many of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear Barry say anything about the Romans, the band he played in Florida? Because he used to come to Valley, Georgia, Romans and Bushmen. He stood out.
Tommy Romans. Yeah, well, see, that's where him and Callahan was with them and the Romans. So Barry brought Callahan into the picture, and then Greg brought Kim Payne into the picture. And when I got here, Kim Payne had just ridden his motorcycle all the way from California to here. So I guess when Greg left LA, he said, well, come on out and you'll be the guy. So he rode it. And I've heard stories of Kim going, he was almost still like this. I mean, you can imagine riding here on a motorcycle from California. and he was trying to get here as quick as he could. So that was something. But Greg brought him into the picture, and then Callahan was with B.O. and the Romans, and then Twiggs is the guy that told Phil Walden about Dwayne Allman, you know. And so I guess I'm presumptuous, but in my mind, I call it leaving, and I call it the original 10, because it was Twiggs, Callahan, Kim, the original 6, and me got in the car and left from here. And the only ones that are left are Dickie and J-Mo and Kim and me.
And Willie Perkins.
Well, Willie Perkins was.
Well, he
not
wasn't one of the
picture.
originals. You're right.
Huh?
You're right. He wasn't one of the originals.
Twiggs was the original guy.
Yeah,
he
was
would
after
handle
Twiggs,
everything.
yeah.
And you
So he had his incident, right?
Well, yeah, and Callahan told me about that incident firsthand. I said, Callahan, what's the deal with Twiggs' picture on the back of that Fillmore East Side? He said, oh man, he said, we got up there and they were playing somewhere, and Twiggs had a definite thing. Twiggs had been with Sam and Dave in Europe, bunch of stuff with Phil Walden. Twiggs was, and Otis and all of that. And he always said the band will always be paid. That's what credo he lived by. They were somewhere in New York, and the guy's going, well, I'm not going to pay you. And Mike said he just kind of lost it, and they had these pen knives that they were going to go fishing, and boom, 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 boom. You're not going to pay the Allman Brothers? Boom, 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 boom. Before he knew it. And I guess he snapped and did that, and hope I don't get sued for this. But
No, you won't.
But
Kim's writing it
that's
in
what he
his
told
book.
me, and-
Kim's got it in his book, and so it's
I
pretty
mean,
plain.
Callahan goes, let's get out of here. Of course, that's your first reaction. You would have like, uh-oh. And Twiggs goes, no, call the police. And he did his time and everything. But that was his credo. It was like, no, the band will be paid. And, you know, you're not going to pay the band. And I mean, we all were kind of like, you know, you're going to mess with our guys. We're going to war, you know. It's kind of the way.
One mess with all of them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's the way everybody. It was a strong feeling. And at the tea party, Lou Reed was playing there, and some guy came back and he knocked the infamous gold Les Paul on the floor. It was sitting in the case, you know, kind of, but the case was open. And knocked it on the floor and hit the floor. And man, I went, whoa! You know, we all went. And Dwayne picked it up, and he said, no, it's fine. It's good. It's all right. And the guy was, of course, it was an accident. The guy's going, oh my God, he felt bad. But, you know, that's just the way we were. You know, kind of like a bond of, you mess with one, you're messing with all of us. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Brothers, like
Yeah.
you said, brothers.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Beautiful, Jan.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much for sharing your memories. And what a life.
Thank you for coming. Thank
I
you.
have a question.
Yes.
Is that a letter?
Yes. Yeah, that's me. That's me. Yeah, I gave it to the big guy. And it says in there, you and Joey can find a good band. What happened was I was screaming a lot in that band, and they figured that I was told if I screamed one more time, I was out of the band.
He was sleeping.
And I told them, well, you know, the screaming's got you this far. And so I actually fired myself because the bass player was Joey's brother, and he's the one that laid down the credo that if you scream again, you're out of the band. So one night I was singing, and I thought, you know what, I've had enough of this, and I got right in his face and went, wah! You know, and I was fired. So Dwayne wrote to me, and he said, you and Joe can find some other cats, heck with him. And it says it right in the letter. So, for years, since it says Dwayne and Donna at the bottom of the letter, I didn't know who really wrote it. If Donna, because Donna was a good friend of mine. So years and years went by. In Gladriel's book, I was able to compare the handwriting to the handwriting in Gladriel's book with the stuff Dwayne wrote in front of the hotel. It's Dwayne's handwriting. So I was just enamored when I knew it was actually written by Dwayne. Yeah, and Yeah. It wasn't worth the shit. Yeah. And they gave me the ATCO number to go get the Allman album. Yeah.
Barely see it anymore. But
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. And for years, I knew their mama too. And for years, I got Christmas cards from Mama A. I want to say for 5 or 6 years. And I so wish I had those, you know, but you never, you know, because she was great. Mama A was
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, man.
Probably the guest.